Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So I told you guys maybe about a week ago or so that Demetrius Andrade, he was moving up to 168 and he's putting himself in position to become Canelo Alvarez's mandatory. Now that it's official that Demetrius Andrade will be moving up to 168 and he will become Canelo Alvarez's mandatory. Right now, the WBO has ordered Andrade to fight Zach Parker next to win that title, or at least win the mandatory spot, to force Canelo Alvarez to defend his title or vacate another belt. This will be 7 years that Demetrius Andrade has been chasing Canelo Alvarez in 3 different weight classes. It's really important to note, Andrade was the champion at 154. Canelo didn't have a belt. Canelo was actually Andrade's mandatory. And just like Jaime Munguia, just like Ryan Garcia, when they were mandatories for Charlo, or at least I should say when Munguia, right now he's the mandatory, the #1 contender for Charlo's belt and for Andrade's belt. He's in the best position to fight for a title, but he doesn't want to fight for the titles because he doesn't want the smoke with either one of those fighters. That's what happened with Ryan Garcia when Ryan was the mandatory for Devin Haney's belt. And this is the same thing that Canelo Alvarez did. He abandoned his position as the mandatory instead of fighting the champion Andrade, who was calling him out. He waited until Andrade was actually stripped of the belt for some political reason, and once he was stripped of the belt, then Canelo fought Liam Smith for that same belt. The same thing Canelo Alvarez did at 168. He waited for the very dangerous, the most dangerous fighter in the division, David Benavidez, to be stripped of the title. Once he got stripped, Canelo Alvarez contacted the WBC and told them that he wants to fight Avni Yildirim for that belt. So now present day, Demetrius Andrade, he's moving up to 168 and he's fighting in an interim bout. At least that's what the WBO is ordering. I talked about this a little bit in my last video when it comes to Andrade, but for those of you guys who don't know, Demetrius Andrade, he had a mandatory at 160, but I was told a while ago from Team Andrade that DAZN, they were not going to pay for that mandatory because no one knew who Demetrius Andrade's opponent was. I've already told you DAZN is starting to put a lot more pressure on fighters when it comes to their level of opposition because DAZN is sick of losing money. They lost money when it came to Gennady Golovkin, fighting against fighters like Steve Rose and Cez Meta, and they're paying them all of this money. But the difference from a Demetrius Andrade and a Gennady Golovkin is Demetrius Andrade, he's been calling out all of the best competition, but they don't want to fight him. Golovkin was getting paid good, and he was avoiding all of the good competition to fight the weakest level of opposition. And that's why now DAZN, they're putting their foot down and they're saying, no, you're going to have to fight a name that's more attractive, or your situation has to lead to something big. And this is the reason why I feel this is the best thing DAZN could have did for Demetrius Andrade, is reject that fight. Since Andrade can't get a Charlo fight, he can't get a Golovkin fight, he can't even get his mandatory Munguia to fight him, right? It makes all the sense in the world to move up to 168, regardless if he gets the Canelo Alvarez fight or not. We know that if Canelo Alvarez had a gun pointed to his head right now, and he had the option to fight Andrade or either die, he would tell a man to pull the trigger. But the good news for Demetrius Andrade is, once again, he goes up to 168, he forces Canelo to vacate his belt, becomes the WBO super middleweight champion, and then David Benavidez, who's about to be Canelo's mandatory, his WBC mandatory, he's going to force Canelo to vacate that belt. He's going to become the WBC champion. Then you have a huge unification bout between Demetrius Andrade and David Benavidez. I've already talked to Team Andrade about this. They said, we're first going after Canelo. We're first going after Canelo. We're going to put a lot of pressure on Canelo to either take that fight or surrender his belts. If he decides not to take the fight, and once again, David Benavidez regains the WBC title, that's when they're going to start focusing on that fight. That is the fight that they want if they cannot corner Canelo Alvarez. So once again, DAZN has put Andrade in a much better position. But for any of this to materialize, the first thing Andrade is most likely going to have to do is fight the mandatory at 168, Zach Parker. Zach Parker, he's been a mandatory for that spot for a long time. He's 22-0 with 16 knockouts. He doesn't really have any names on his resume, but this is interesting because once again, we have to see how Andrade is going to make the transition from 160 to 168. It's a complete different weight class. So we have to see if Andrade is going to look just as impressive as he looked at 160, which I believe he will. Now, when it comes to the whole situation with the WBO, the way the rule is supposed to work, if you are already a WBO champion, soon as you move up to a higher weight class, you instantly become the mandatory. But because Zach Parker has been a mandatory for so long, that's the reason why they're now ordering that fight. Between Demetrius Andrade and Zach Parker, the fight should be around April or May. It's really going to be a game changer if Demetrius Andrade becomes the WBO champion. He will be doing exactly what Jermall Charlo did. Jermall Charlo moved up to 160 after Canelo did, became Canelo's mandatory, and he forced Canelo to vacate his belt. We're going to see this all play out again at 168. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
My name is Chris, and I'm all the way here from Anchorage, Alaska at Scalp Carolinas, and I'm here for my second treatment of SMP. Well, I was sitting at home one day and going over my Facebook page, and they have different, like advertisements popping up, and I saw one for SMP. And I saw some pictures of some guys, before and after, and I was looking at that, and it caught my attention. So I Googled it. SMP, nothing showed up in my area. So, I did a little more research, and all of a sudden, Scalp Carolinas popped up in the web browser. So I started watching his videos and seeing all the reaction from all the other people. We talked on the phone, we made appointments and everything. I sent him pictures, and he looked at them, and I was like, can you fix this? And, he pretty much said, no problem. My first session, he made me feel extremely comfortable. It was almost like I was talking to family. He started, and during the whole treatment, we talked and, about our families and our life, and, and things that he does and things that I do. And before I know it, the first session was over. When you see someone doing something that they love, as much as I see Enoch Glover love what he does, it shows in his work. I wouldn't point anyone in any other direction but here to North Carolina, Scalp Carolinas, to get this done.
All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called LO Deki Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to lodeki.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram.